All right, welcome to this explainer. Today we're jumping right into a highly unorthodox theoretical framework called the Unified Theory of Geologic History, or UTGH for short, as presented by the author, Darrell Waters. We're going to look at two vastly different ways to read the exact same scientific evidence about our planet's history. Now, we aren't here to pick sides, we're simply here to explore how this fascinating source material interprets the data.
So let's establish the core duality of the source material right out of the gate. On one side, you have standard uniformitarianism. This is the mainstream consensus, the idea that Earth's surface features and its massive biological diversity form slowly over millions of years through the exact same gradual processes we see happening today. On the flip side, UTGH argues that while the Earth itself is incredibly ancient, the surface features and the crazy variety of life we see right now, well, they're the result of a single catastrophic rupture event that happened just 5,300 years ago.
To unpack these two massive, totally contradictory paradigms, here is our roadmap for today. First, the deep time dilemma. Second, the epigenetic adaptation engine. Third, one single catastrophe. Fourth, solving geologic mysteries. And finally, real predictions, not fix it.
Let's start with Section 1, the deep time dilemma, waiting on random mutation.
The author points out a really stark mathematical contrast regarding our origins. The standard model says modern human diversity requires at least 50,000 to 100,000 years of geographic separation because it relies on very slow genetic mutations. That is well over 2,300 generations. But the author poses a super provocative question. If the standard scientific framework of uniformitarianism is correct, how many generations of hominid had to completely die out until a useful random mutation could actually fix a real biological impediment to survival? The wait time for a beneficial mutation to take hold is just agonizingly slow. UTGH counters this by arguing that human diversity was actually produced in roughly 200 generations, or just over 5,000 years. But how on earth could life adapt that fast?
That brings us to Section 2, the Epigenetic Adaptation Engine, a front-loaded genome.
UTGR replaces those random, slow genetic mutations with epigenetic expression, framing it as the primary engine of rapid biological change. According to the source, epigenetics solves the rapid adaptation equation far more cleanly than mainstream science's reliance on deep time. Instead of waiting millennia for a random DNA copying error to accidentally give you a survival benefit, environmental stress instantly triggers dormant traits that were already sitting right there in the DNA.
To really hammer this home, the author uses the vivid example of the desert locust. Under normal conditions, this bug is a solitary, shy, bright green grasshopper. But when population density spikes, physical contact literally triggers a serotonin cascade. Within hours, not thousands of years, we're talking hours, it changes color to bright yellow and black. Its muscles completely reshape for sustained flight, and it turns into a highly aggressive swarming locust. And here's the kicker. There is zero change to its DNA sequence. None. It's the exact same organism, simply expressing a totally different region of its genome because the environment demanded it.
The author argues that pre-flood organisms carried a front-loaded genome. This means all that biological diversity was already there, just waiting to be unlocked by the intense stress of a radically changed environment. Think of it like this. The genome isn't a blank page slowly being written by random mutations over time. It's actually a complete, fully stocked library. And epigenetics is just the process of yanking the right survival book off the shelf in the blink of an eye.
Let's shift gears now. Section 3. One single catastrophe, scaling up to geology.
The source is very careful to clarify a massive misconception here. UTGH absolutely does not dispute the 4.5 billion year age of the Earth itself. It fully agrees with mainstream science on the vast age of the universe, the solar system, and Earth's deep basement rocks. The dispute is 100% focused on the sedimentary layers sitting on top of that basement rock. Uniformitarianism says those layers stacked up slowly over millions of years. UTGH proposes they were deposited incredibly rapidly during a single catastrophic planetary rupture event just 5,300 years ago.
Section 4, Solving Geologic Mysteries, the Sedimentary Record.
Now, this question perfectly frames the wild mystery of polystrate fossils. We're talking about individual organisms, like massive vertical tree trunks, that are preserved standing straight up, piercing through multiple geological rock layers. Standard geology tells us these different layers represent millions of years of extremely slow accumulation. But basic biology tells us a dead tree would rot away long before millions of years of dirt could slowly cover its top. So how did it get there?
According to the author, the standard model relies heavily on ad hoc fixes to explain anomalies like this. Mainstream geologists tend to treat every vertical tree as an isolated special local event, maybe a flash flood over here or a collapsed sandbar over there. But the author argues that UTGH solves far more mysteries than uniformitarian science can, simply by applying a single global mechanism. For example, the 1980 eruption of Mount St. Helens proved in real time that violent, catastrophic mechanisms can snap millions of trees and sink them upright into deep mud instantly. UTGH argues that this exact forensic signature is found globally, which means it requires a global catastrophic mechanism, not a million separate local excuses.
The author also points out that vertical dinosaur bones found across entire continents fit this exact same forensic signature. Instead of treating these bizarre vertical bones as separate special local events, UTGH notes that they remarkably cluster near places where mountains were actively forming during that proposed rupture event. The theory is that the bones were sorted by massive flood currents and then sunk straight down through wet sediment by massive earthquake liquefaction. It's one clean mechanism explaining a worldwide pattern, rather than frantically patching holes in a slow geology theory.
Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, Real Predictions, Not Fixes, Testing the Theory. The author insists that for UTGH to be legitimate science, every finding has to be a real prediction rather than just an ad hoc fix applied after the fact, and they put their money where their mouth is. The theory predicts that the innermost cores of the very oldest giant sequoias will completely lack annual growth rings due to a unique pre-flood climate. It predicts lunar dust will actually contain specific Earth-origin isotopes. It even claims that modern biomechanical modeling of giant sauropod skeletons will prove they physically couldn't survive under current Earth gravity, and predicts we'll find precise 360-day calendars across disconnected ancient cultures. The author boldly argues that if even one of these highly specific tests is proven false, the entire UTGH framework breaks apart.
As we wrap up this explainer on the source's wildly unorthodox framework, we want to echo the author's sentiment and leave you with this absolutely vital question about the scientific method itself. When two completely different scientific models look at the exact same rocks, the exact same dinosaur bones, and the exact same DNA, yet make vastly different predictions about reality, which one will the unyielding physical evidence ultimately support? That is the true beauty of testable science, and it's the ultimate puzzle for you to ponder long after we finish today.